Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today I'm doing a Legendary Fisherman Combat Star deck profile. So man, is this a weird one, but I really like it. So I was actually playing around with Legendary Fisherman, and I was playing with Paleozoics in the deck, and I was like, you know what, there's got to be a different way to play this deck. I got to come up with something a little bit different, because people keep asking me for Legendary Fisherman deck, because the Lost Art just came out, and I was like, you know what? Let me look through my binders. So I was flipping through my binders and I saw the copy of the Edatin, and I was like, man, wait a minute. Legendary Fisherman's a level 5 warrior monster. Let's do that. So I threw this deck together, and I think it's actually really good, surprisingly. You can summon out multiple copies of the fusion monsters per turn, and even go into Legendary Fisherman 3 to OTK your opponent and banish their entire field, which is pretty good. So, without further ado, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell next to you can become part of Notification Squad, and definitely tell me what you think of this deck down in the comments down below, and check out the Patreon, because we got some awesome awards for you guys, like you're doing game strips for every single video, getting a signed card sent in the mail, or even getting requested deck profile just like this one, every single month that you are a patron, along with test hands. So, without further ado, guys, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of the Legendary Fisherman. So what this card does is when Umi is on the field, this card is unaffected by spells, and it cannot be targeted for attacks, but it does not prevent your opponent from attacking you directly. It's an alright card, but it's really where you're going into your copy of Legendary Fisherman 3 that makes this card really nuts. We then play 3 copies of the Legendary Fisherman 2, which this card's name becomes the Legendary Fisherman while on the field or in the graveyard. And then while Umi is on your field, this card is unaffected by other monster effects, and if this card, face-up card, is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, while its owners control it, you can add 1 level 7 water monster from your deck to your hand, which is always going to be your copies of the Legendary Fisherman 3. So the Legendary Fisherman 3 is a really neat card in this deck, that it has the ability that you can tribute summon this card. You can tribute this card. You can tribute a Legendary Fisherman to special summon this card from your hand, which is pretty good. And then you can banish all monsters your opponent controls. Also, this card can't attack the turn you activate the effect. It can't be destroyed by battle or by your opponent's card effects. Also, it's unaffected by the effect of spells and traps. And then once per turn, you can return as many of your opponent's banished cards as possible to the graveyard. And if you do, the first battle or effect damage your opponent takes from this card is doubled, which is insanely good. This card is a really good card and is insanely good. I just wish it had more support cards. It's basically just these three cards, Umi and Warrior of Atlantis. We should play 3 copies of Warrior of Atlantis in the deck too, because you do play the Legendary Ocean to downgrade their levels, which you kind of have to watch out for just a little bit in the deck. That's like the only thing that you have to watch out for when you're playing this deck. And you have to watch out for downgrading these 6 where they're not level 5 in your hand and they're level 4 now. Then we play 3 copies of Txne the Sky Star. Txne the Sky Star is kind of neat in this deck because if your opponent controls a monster, or if you control an earth monster, you can normal summon this card without tributing, and if this card is normal summoned, you can special summon a level 5 earth warrior monster in your hand. And then it also has the ability that once per turn, when an opponent activates a card or effect that targets a warrior monster, you can quick effect, make this card lose exactly 500 if you do negate the activation, if you do destroy that card as well. You play 3 copies of Hayate. Hayate is pretty good too, because it has the ability that you control a light warrior monster, or if your opponent controls a monster, or if only your opponent controls a monster, you can normal summon this card without tributing. And then if you normal summon this card, or special summon this card, you can special summon a level 5 light warrior monster from your hand. You can only use this effect of Hayate, the Earth Star, once per turn. And then once per turn, when an opponent's monster attacks a warrior monster you control, you can make this card lose exactly 500 attack, if you negate the attack as well. We played 3 copies of Kaiki, the Unity Star. Kaiki is really cool. It reminds me of Nightmare from Soul Calibur 4, like his armor style. I don't know why, but it really does remind me of Nightmare. Kaiki's effect is pretty neat because he kind of counts as a polymerization. As you can tell by his belly, it looks like a polymerization. If this card is special summon, except during a damage step, you can pay 500 life points to fusion summon a warrior fusion monster from your extra deck, using monsters from your hand or field as fusion materials. And then during your opponent's turn, if this card's in your graveyard, and you control a level 5 or higher warrior monster, whose current attack is different from its original attack, you can quick effect special summon this card, which is pretty good to be able to special summon this card to your side of the field. We play a single copy of Overlay Buster, or Overlay Booster, because it's a light warrior monster. If your opponent controls a monster with 2,000 or more attack, you can special summon this card from your hand and face-up defense, which is pretty good. You're usually not going to use it for XYZ materials. You're usually going to fuse and summon it away. And then we play 3 copies of King of the Swamp. Okay, you guys might be thinking, why King of the Swamp? Well, you can discard King of the Swamp to get your polymerization from your deck to your hand, and literally everything over here is literally a fusion material target, because you can use a level 5 or higher warrior monster to fusion summon into it. So from here over and then here under is all fusion materials. But the only thing that you can use for King of the Swamps is your copy of Shura the Combat Star. That's the only one that you can actually go into with your copy of King of the Swamp. But you can ditch it to grab your poly. The only thing I've been thinking about with this deck is dropping the Warriors of Atlantis. But I really wanted to keep the Warriors of Atlantis and the Legendary Ocean in the deck so I could summon out these for free, basically, and just normal summon them out, which I thought was really cool. So, that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. I have to say, this is one of my more unique decks. We then play a single copy of Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion's pretty good in the deck because it can give you a level 5 Warrior Monster, which a card that you guys might not be expecting works in this deck, but it's Guilty the D-Knight. Guilty the D-Knight is our target for this deck because it is a light Warrior Monster, and that's the only reason you play Instant Fusion, is so you can summon Guilty. We then play 2 copies of Pot of Desires because there's not a particular card, if you banish it, that the game's over in this deck, and you want to draw through the deck as quickly as possible to get the cards that you need. So you play Pot of Desires at 2. You play 2 copies of Ultra Polymerization. This card is really good. I wanted to put it at 3 in the deck, but I just ended up playing it at 2 because I played the King of the Swamps. If you don't want to play King of the Swamps, bump this to 3 and bump Poly to 2. But what this card does is you pay 2,000 life points to fusion summon from your extra deck using 2 monsters you control as material, and neither player can activate cards or effect in response to this card's activation. You can manage this card from your graveyard and then target one fusion monster that was special summon this card effect, and then you special summon all the materials onto your side of the field, but you negate their effects and their attack defense becomes 0, which is fine because if you have like polymerization or something, you just fusion summon into another monster. We play 3 copies of Polymerization in this deck. Polymerization's really good in here because you can fusion summon into your copies of your combat stars from the extra deck, which is really, really cool to be able to go into your monsters. We play 3 copies of Feast of the Wild level 5. Feast of the Wild is like the best card in the deck because it lets you special summon up to 2 level 5 warrior monsters from your hand or graveyard, but their effects are negated, and also they can't attack for the rest of the turn, which is totally fine because you're usually just going to use them as materials anyways, but you're basically just trying to use this to get your Legendary Fisherman out to your side of the field, or using your copies to get your Edatin or Hayate or whatever you need to your side of the field, which is really, really helpful. We play 3 copies of Legendary Ocean because it lets you normal summon out your Legendary Fishermans because they become level 4. This is the only card that conflicts with the entire deck because you play the Legendary Ocean and then it makes it so when you use your Legendary Fisherman to summon it out to your side of the field, it becomes level 4, which is kind of good for you and kind of bad because you're going for that Legendary Fisherman Ocean, or you're going for that Legendary Fisherman engine, and you're not able to use it as a fusion material to go into your combat star or your conquering star or any of your star warriors. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the single trap that we play in the deck, and it is a single copy of Sea Stealth Attack. I feel like this is good enough to play as a 1-of in the deck. What it does is when this card is activated, you can activate an Ummi from your hand or graveyard, and then while Ummi is on the field, which your Legendary Ocean is always treated as Ummi, always, and this card is when Ummi is on the field, you can activate one of these effects. Once per turn, you can banish a water monster you control until the end phase. And this turn, face-up spells and traps you control cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. And at the start of the damage step, if a water monster whose original level is 5 or higher battles an opponent's monster, you can destroy that opponent's monster, which is pretty good. I like that ability to just be able to, immediately drop this and then, deal with my opponent's monsters with my Legendary Fisherman. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Combat Star. Combat Star, sure, the Combat Star is pretty good in the deck. It's a really, really neat card. It takes an Edatin, the Conquering Star, to go into this in level 5 or higher warrior monster, which has the ability that once per turn during the battle phase, you can quick effect make this card and all monsters, you can make all monsters, or make the attack of all face-up monsters your opponent controls becomes 0. So everything becomes 0 attack, which is pretty good. And then once per turn, if a monster battles another monster during the damage calculation, you can make each monster gain attack equal to its own level, which this card is the highest level that can be in the game, which is 12, which is pretty cool. And then also, during the damage calculation only, if this fusion summon card you control is to a battle by card effect, you can special summon one Edaton the Conquering Star from your extra deck, and is treated as a fusion summon. So we play 2 copies of Edaton. I thought about bumping Edaton to 3 because you can go into it so much in this deck, but I feel like it's just a good 2 of to me for right now. It takes 2 level 5 or higher warrior monsters to go into this card, and if this card is fusion summon, you can add a level 5 warrior monster from your deck to your hand, which can be your legendary Fisherman, and it searches it if you need it. And it also has the ability that once per turn, you can discard any number of cards, and this card gains 200 attack for each card discarded. And then once per turn, during damage calculation, if this card battles an opponent's monster with an equal or lower level, you can quick effect make that opponent's monster's attack 0, which is pretty good to basically hit your opponent for 3k. We play a single copy of Guilty the D-Knight, which is going to be really good to be able to go into with your instant fusion, to be able to, have a light warrior on your side of the field. Moral Sword to help you OTK. Access Code Talker because it pops a whole bunch of cards on the field. Appaloosa because it negates everything that you kind of don't want to have to deal with, which is super helpful for the deck, and I really like playing Appaloosa in the deck. 1 copy of Unicorn just to be able to spin stuff. Phoenix to pop spells and traps, Cerberus to pop monsters, and then the MVP of the deck, which is 1 copy of Predaplant Verte Anaconda, which helps you go in with Ultra Polymerization into your copy of Edaton, which is super helpful to be able to do. 1 copy of Gaia Charger, or Gaia Dragon the Thunder Charger. This card's pretty good in the deck too because you go into it after you use the effect of Volcasaurus to be able to pop something and inflict damage to your opponent. And then because you play light warriors in the deck, you have 1 copy of Constellar Pleiades because it takes 2 light monsters that are level 5 or higher. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a really, really, really fun deck. I really enjoy playing around with this deck. It's super weird, and I'm really thinking about, I might drop Legendary Ocean and the Warrior of Atlantis. I don't know if I'm going to or not yet, because it's worked out so far. It's just sometimes when you draw the Legendary Fisherman 1 and the Legendary Fisherman 2, it can kind of conflict with them, but it's not so bad that it's like, oh, I need to get rid of this. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can become part of the notification squad, and let me know what you think of this deck down in the comments down below. I know it's kind of wacky, but it's kind of cool. If you want to play around with Legendary Fisherman and the Star Warriors, it's pretty good. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to check out that Patreon, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.